Hey everyone, how's it going? I'm coming to y'all with yet another guitar review. I know I've changed back to the wall from my first review. I'm always rearranging things in here to make room for new things. In this case, my amplifiers are where my futon used to be. So, gotta record against this wall now. But today, we're going to be looking at a pretty cool guitar by Ovation that, honestly, not a lot of folks talk about or know about. And that is part of their Academy brand of guitars. So, people know Ovation, they think about, the mainline Ovation, they often think of Applause, their budget line, and maybe they think of Adamas, their upper end line. And that's all well and good. I mean, those are all brands that Ovation owns, but what a lot of people may not know is that Ovation also made guitars under different brandings, throughout the years. One of which being Matrix, which is, there's some pretty cool Matrix guitars out there. But Academy was actually their super budget guitars. Okay, these were made back in the 1970s, I believe, when they were still making guitars here in the USA, and I believe it was Cincinnati. And these were meant to be even more affordable than an Applause. And they were called the Academy because they were intended to be student guitars. Something you would give to someone who is learning how to play or wants to learn how to play. So that's right, long before Taylor had an Academy or Takamine had an Academy, Ovation had an Academy. And these are very, very strange guitars because this actually shares a lot in common, and I didn't grab it, I didn't think about it, but it shares a lot in common with another guitar that I've reviewed here on this channel, and that is the Applause AA14. This is the Academy KA14, and it is a very similar guitar, but it is not identical by any means. There are a number of differences. You see the headstock here is much more typical Ovation versus what Applause would have used at that point in time. Again, go watch my Applause AA14 review if you want to know about that particular guitar, but more Ovation style headstock. The top is plastic. That's right, this is a plastic top. There's only one piece of wood on the whole guitar, and that's the bridge. We'll get to that later. So a plastic top, typical Lyramold bowl for this, not Lyracord, specifically it was Lyramold. What the difference is, I'm not entirely sure. There may not be a difference. It may just be a different name given to the same material throughout the years. I honestly couldn't tell you. And just like the Applauses from that time period, this has a one-piece aluminum neck and fingerboard. So maybe you can see from the side on that, if the animals in this house will be nice to each other for 5 minutes, you might be able to see that the side of the fingerboard there looks metal. That's because it is. This is actually a one-piece aluminum neck and fingerboard, which is really cool because it means this neck is never going to warp and move anywhere or have any kind of issues of the sort. Also, I should have mentioned before I get too far into this, this is not going to be a shut up and play demonstration video. This is going to be a full-length guitar review. Will I give some sound demos? Sure, but I mean, it's being recorded at a relative distance away from my cell phone, which is being used to record it, and then it's going to go through YouTube's compression. So, no matter how well I set everything up, you're not going to get a real idea on how this guitar truly sounds anyways. I'll try to do a proper acoustic demo where I have a mic in front of it and I'm running it into my audio interface, and I'm doing all of that for you guys at some point. But this is going to be to talk about the guitar, talk about the history a little bit, what I think of it, what I think of its feel and its tone, what I think it's best suited for, etc., etc. And honestly, it's mostly just to help to preserve the history of these really neat instruments. So if you're looking for a shut up and play demonstration of this guitar, click away. You're not going to find it here, and I'm not going to apologize for that. This is a review, and a review means talking and a lot of it. So, now that all of that is out of the way, what makes this guitar so unique? Well, aside from the fact that it's practically all synthetic, like I mentioned, the bridge is the only piece of wood on here, and it's made out of walnut, and it's your typical string pull-through design that you'll see on any Ovation. Everything else, completely synthetic. Maybe not completely. The nut and saddle feel like bone. I can't confirm they're bone. They could be a synthetic, but they feel like bone. And good luck finding any kind of old catalogs for these things to get 100% confirmation. I even shared this in the Ovation Guitar Collectors Reddit pages and Facebook groups a number of months ago, and most people there didn't even know these things existed, and the few that did were just like, oh my god, one of those is still intact, because they are notorious for exploding. And the reason why is simple. When you have a plastic top and your strings are pulling on that plastic top, plastic will crack and break. Okay, this is not carbon fiber. This is not something super durable. It's ABS plastic. And this one already has some warping going on. It's going to be hard to show you, but you may be able to, if I catch the light there, you can maybe you can see that little dent, that little dip right in here on the plastic top. And this part I know is going to be practically impossible to capture on camera, but maybe you can see. Okay, look at the angle of the back of the bridge there. You see how that looks like the bridge is lifting? The bridge is still firmly glued to the guitar. It is just pulling up on this top so much that there is a ton of deflection back here, a ton of belly. And eventually what will happen when you look at pictures of these is you'll see cracks begin to form in the top, right here behind the bridge. And eventually the string tension just rips that son of a bitch clear off and shatters the top. Because it's plastic. It's not a particularly durable material. And so most of these didn't survive. And honestly, what I'm going to do with this one more than likely, because I don't think this thing could survive a bridge doctor. You know, maybe I'll experiment with that, but I'm probably going to eventually take these steel strings off of here and put like nylon strings on here or something and treat it like a classical guitar, because God knows the nut is wide enough for it. And that's going to lead into the next section. One of the weird things about this guitar is the nut width on this thing is strange, okay? My first thought was this feels like a damn classical neck. And it's not quite that wide, but man, it is close. For reference, here I have a Washburn guitar that I recently acquired, and this has a 1 3/4 inch nut. And when I tell you that the Washburn neck feels noticeably slimmer than this Academy, I mean it. This thing feels much wider than this. And doing the measurements, I had to take my own measurements, and I have my notes here so I don't forget anything. I measured the nut at, let's see here, 45 millimeters wide, okay, or 1.77 inches. I don't remember if I took those measurements at the same time or at different times with different measuring instruments. Either way, it feels wider than a 1 3/4 inch nut, not quite as wide as a classical nut. So, just for preservation's sake, I'm going to take these things off and put some classical strings on here. Because they'll put a lot less tension on the top of this poor old instrument. Let me get my notes to make sure I'm not missing anything. Let's see here. I didn't write the scale length down on this. I apologize. I actually don't know the scale length on this guitar off the top of my head. What I can tell you is it is a 12 fret design. And that's one of the other ways this differs from the Applause, is the Applause is a 14 fret. This is a 12 fret, meaning that the neck joins the body right at the 12th fret. Which is something we see on a lot of double O's, you know, and sometimes triple O's. We also see it on a lot of classicals. Not really something you see on a lot of larger steel string guitars. There are 12 fret dreadnoughts, they exist, but that's more of a personal choice. It's not a standard by any means. So that's a way in which this differs quite a bit. What else do we got here? Oh, the tuners, okay. So these are actually open gear, 3 on a plate, 14:1 ratio tuning machines. And they actually have these beautiful kind of like pearloid buttons on them. And a really nice design on the plate itself. What I'll tell you about the tuners is they work. This thing, it stays in tune really nicely, like really nicely. But these tuners are stiff. Like especially this D tuner, this D string tuner, good God. You could not use like a peg winder very effectively with this. In fact, a buddy of mine tried using his little peg winding drill thing, and it struggled on this string. Like this tuner is stiff. Could be an individual issue. I'll probably just oil it up. But I like to leave things as I get them because, you know, it's more fun that way. But they work really well. This thing stays in tune incredibly well, which I was surprised by. You know, usually with cheaper guitars, especially old, not even just old, but especially on old cheaper guitars, the tuners either don't stay in tune worth the crap, or they're so worn out they just don't work anymore. These things are incredible. Like, they do the job really, really nicely. Like, if I was going to sell this guitar to someone who didn't care about original parts, I might swap these tuners out and keep them for myself, because they work that well. But I like to leave things original, so I wouldn't do so, but I would be tempted. Like, these things are really nice tuning machines. Moving on down the notes. No electronics in this one. It is a pure acoustic design. So no preamp, no pickup, nothing like that. You could install one yourself if you wanted to. It wouldn't be particularly hard, especially if you wanted to do something like the Journey Tech or K&K Mini transducer system, where you just glue them inside, like through the top of the sound hole. You come in and glue them onto the bridge, and then drill yourself an output jack, and you'd be good to go. Be easy to install those, but it didn't come with anything. Made in the USA, which is pretty cool. At least that's what everyone tells me. I forgot to mention this particular one is from 1977, according to the serial number. There was a dedicated classical version of this, which was the KA14. Okay, again, this information is coming from more knowledgeable Ovation experts on the internet, so take it with a grain of salt. I don't know 100% if it's true, but I've seen the classical versions of these, and whenever I asked about them, they told me the classical version was called the KA13, so I'm just going to buy it. It came in two colors. We have this very light blue, and maybe it's hard to tell that it's blue, but it's a very, very light blue, and the other was a cream white. Also worth noting, this is not the original rosette. Okay, this is something I ordered on some website and just quickly threw in there because I hated seeing the empty space there with all the former, like, leftover adhesive or whatever. So just got that and slapped it on here to make it look a little bit more complete. But this is not the factory rosette. We do have dots on the fingerboard. No, they are not inlay. They are just where someone has taken a step drill bit and drilled slightly into the aluminum to reveal that, you know, metal, that silvery aluminum metal, to form a dot. So, yeah. Weird guitar. It's a very weird guitar. Sound-wise, it's interesting. People like to talk about tone woods. I don't discuss tone woods and what they supposedly do in my guitar reviews because I always feel like it tells people what they should be hearing, and they don't really form their own opinions. There's no tone woods to discuss here, folks. We got ABS plastic on an injection molded fiberglass bowl, and it sounds like nothing else I've ever heard. I'll tell you that much. What I can tell you is this top is resonating quite a bit. Like, this top vibrates. I'll even get the bowl away from my body so I'm not absorbing anything. Top is actually resonating and vibrating a lot. So the sound of this guitar is being produced by the top. Why do I bring that up? Well, duh, that's obvious. Every guitar's sound is produced by the top. No. A lot of the time, especially with cheap guitars, the top is so thick, or the bracing is so beefy, that the top can't move a lot, and most of your sound actually ends up coming from your strings. That's why when you play a bunch of those sub-$100 guitars, they all sound exactly the same. It's because they sound like they're strings. They don't sound like the wood at all. This sounds like the top resonating, which is its own sound entirely. And I'll even try to sit a little bit closer so that you can kind of get a better idea of the sound of this thing. A little bit of finger picking, and this is an awkward position to hold this thing in, but... doing some flat picking. I'm messing it all up. This angle is awkward. I'm sorry, guys. So yeah, it has its own sound. Is that sound good? Does that sound bad? Well, tone is purely subjective. I may love this sound and you may hate it, and vice versa. So I'm not going to tell you if I think the guitar sounds amazing or not, because it's not really the purpose of the video, you know? I like everyone to form their own opinions. And beyond that, you're not really going to be able to hear it properly through all the things I mentioned earlier anyways. The fact this is a cell phone microphone that's going to be going through a lot of YouTube compression, and I'm somewhat of a distance away, it's not a direct line, you're never going to really hear how this thing sounds through YouTube. That's the facts, folks. It just is what it is. But maybe it'll give you some kind of idea. I can tell you this. It doesn't sound like any of the other 20 acoustics that I own. Not in the least bit. It doesn't sound like my, mahogany top back and side guitars, or my mahogany back and side guitars with a spruce top. It doesn't sound like my maple guitars, my rosewood guitars. It doesn't sound like the cedar guitars I've owned. It sounds like what it sounds like. It doesn't even sound like the HPL guitars and carbon fiber guitars that I played. It sounds like itself. And it definitely has a unique voice. What I like doing to this, and I tuned it up just because of the video, but what I like doing is I like to down tune this a half step down. And I think this thing sings beautifully when it's down tuned. I really do. And one of the songs I'll play with it is like Save Me by Jelly Roll. And it just sounds, in my opinion, really well suited for that finger picking style. I mean, it feels great for finger picking because we do have such a wide nut. The action on this thing, despite all the belly, isn't crazy high. Like, this thing is actually very playable, despite all of that deflection on the underside of the bridge. And that may be because the saddle has been shaved down by the previous owner a fair bit. Okay, but despite the fact that it has a top that's bowing up and turning into a cereal bowl, this is one of the more playable Ovations that's from this era, from this time frame. You can bet money that if this was one of the wood-topped Ovations from the same time period, there's a good chance you'd already have cracks in the top and action would be so high you need to slide to play it. And someone actually got pissed off at me on my 1862 review for saying that it was just inherently a design flaw of Ovation. They're like, well, someone just didn't take care of that guitar. Yeah, you're right. Someone didn't take care of the guitar. But the fact is, a guitar with a synthetic back and side, like a synthetic bowl back and side and a wood top, is always going to need extra care compared to an all-wood guitar, and is going to be physically more likely to crack because that bowl cannot, does not, will not ever move when the temperature changes or the humidity changes, but that top is going to try. So whenever that top tries to shrink down and the bowl holds onto it, it's going to pull on the wood and it's going to crack. Or when it tries to expand, it'll try to grow past where the fiberglass is, and the fiberglass is going to say, and not let it move, and it's going to crack. It's just a matter of, is it cracking upwards or cracking downwards? It is a design flaw. I love Ovation. They're my favorite acoustic guitar company. I've said so many times. I think they have incredible sounds and designs, but it is a flaw with the company that needs to be addressed. This particular guitar doesn't have that flaw because it has its own flaw, which is it has a lifespan. Eventually, it's inevitable. This plastic top is going to crack apart and break. It's going to happen at some point. I can delay it by putting nylon strings on here, and that's all I'm going to do is delay it. Because at the end of the day, it's still just kind of inevitable. But I'll tell you, I like it. It's a cool guitar. It's a very neat guitar. It's a cool part of Ovation's history. As far as what these things tend to sell for in the secondary market, that changes, year to year, month to month, day to day even. I paid, I think it was like $115 for this one. And I see them go for between $100 and $200 when they do come up for sale. They're not very common, so they don't come up for sale very often. But when they do, they tend to be very, very cheap because, even if people don't know what they are, they're going to look at it and say, plastic guitar. And they're not going to ask very much for it. So, who's this guitar for? Ovation fans who like having cool parts of Ovation's history. Guitar collectors in general who just like having strange and unique instruments. Music historians who want to preserve something like this and kind of keep its legacy alive. But also, genuinely, I think it's really good for finger pickers. Because it feels fantastic for finger picking, and I personally like the sound for finger picking. So, strumming, I'm not a fan personally. But maybe you are. We all have different preferences, and that's completely okay. So that is the the Academy by Ovation KA14 plastic top deep bowl acoustic guitar. It's something else. It really is a very unique instrument. It has a voice all its own. It has a story and a history all its own. And that's worth something, inevitably, by itself. Whether you want one for your collection or not, I don't know. Maybe this video helped you decide that, maybe not. But I think it's just a really interesting axe that I wanted to pick up purely to experience and to review. I bought this thing with the intention of reviewing it, genuinely. I paid that money for it. I don't work at a music store or anything. I have a buddy who runs one, but I never get to bring things home and review. I ordered this on Reverb because no one had any videos of these, and I thought it would be a real shame for these to be completely lost to history. And so, yeah, glad I did it. Glad I have it. Will I hang on to it? Maybe. Maybe I'll keep it. Maybe I'll sell it. Maybe I'll trade it. I don't know. But what I do know is I'm happy that I paid for it. So hopefully you took something away from this review. And if I forgot something, I greatly apologize. Comment down below and I'll address whatever it is that I forgot to talk about. I will say quickly, the strings on here are 1152 D'Addario XS coated strings, phosphor bronze strings. Okay, that's what I use on practically all my guitars. So that's what's on here. So if anyone wants to know the string gauge, that's what it is. You can put lighter strings on here, and I'd recommend it. If you want to put heavier strings on here, I mean, it's your money, but you're just going to shorten the lifespan even more. The neck won't go anywhere, but that top sure as hell will. So, yeah. Hope you all enjoyed the video, and I will see you next time with another guitar review. It'll either be my Sigma DMC 15E, my Boulder Creek ECGC-1P, I forget the model number on that thing, or it'll be that pretty cool Washburn I showed a second ago, or my Blue Ridge BR340. It'll be one of those guitars that I do a review on next. So look forward to those if you enjoyed my guitar reviews. All right, I'll see you later.